Cornstalk was a Shawnee leader in the Ohio country in the 1760s and 70s. His name in the Shawnee language was Hokolesqua. Hokolesqua. R.I.P. to Hokolesqua. Hokolesqua. Say that to the earth. In Native American folklore, when you say the names of the dead to the earth, they are still alive. Hokolesqua. Little is known about his early life. It's like Beetlejuice, right? Hokolesqua, Hokolesqua, Hokolesqua. Well, hello there, Hoko. How you been, Hoko? Cornstalk is going to get killed. He was the ally. You had, most of the Shawnee, all of the Shawnee were basically on board with going to war with the Americans, but Cornstalk was like, no, not my Americans. These white people, these white men and women, these white males and females, what are you saying? We should go to war with them? Cornstalk wasn't having it. He had a peace envoy, made a diplomatic visit to Fort Randolph in Virginia, now West Virginia, big shocker. A bunch of racists in West Virginia, hoping to learn about American intentions while he was there. Somebody was killed by some natives in the fort's vicinity, and angry soldiers went ahead and killed Cornstalk. So Cornstalk might have had some of his men out and about waiting, and then, I guess the natives just killed him just out of nowhere, right? Just wasn't provoked or nothing, not in the vicinity, just, on the side waiting for Cornstalk to come out. His murder-enraged Shawnees deprived them of an important voice of moderation. They sure did. Lord Dunmore's War, American Revolution, Aftermath, and Legacy. A legend about Aracoma, a supposed daughter of Cornstalk, is well known in Logan County, West Virginia. The story is presented as an outdoor drama. Each year at Chief Logan State Park, the city of Logan, West Virginia, was known as Aracoma from about 1844 to 1907 and was named after her. Two Delawares were sent with captured scalps and very smart messages to encourage the Delawares and Wyandottes of the Sandusky to break their neutrality. Blue Jacket and Little Turtle. Blue Jacket and Little Turtle. What do they say about Blue Jacket and Little Turtle? This Wikipedia thing here. Blue Jacket, a.k.a. We Yapir Sinwa. We Yapir Sinwa. Oh, We Yapir Sinwa was war chief of the Shawnee people. Known for his militant defense of Shawnee lands in the Ohio country. Apparently, Blue Jacket wanted the Native Americans to unite before Tecumseh. And it was said that Tecumseh got the idea from Blue Jacket. Blue Jacket was pushing this idea of a united Native American Confederacy for quite some time. He was an important predecessor of the famous Shawnee leader Tecumseh. Little is known of Tecumseh. Some asshole in Conejos County. It's Tecumseh. You're on the side of Nazis, aren't you, you racist fuck? Little is known of Blue Jacket's early life. He first appears in written historical records in 1773, when he was already a grown man and a war chief. In that year, a British missionary visited the Shawnee villages on the Scioto River, recorded the location of Blue Jacket's town on Deer Creek, which is present-day Ross County, Ohio. Blue Jacket was in Lord Dunmore's War and the American Revolutionary War, allied with the British in both of them, just like Daniel Boone was in Lord Dunmore's War. Lord Dunmore's War is an interesting war because you had all these, I think George Washington might have been, I don't know. George Washington was at Braddock's defeat and Daniel Boone was at Braddock's defeat, I think. All these motherfuckers used to be British. I don't hate that 1619 project. I don't hate it. I should take some notes and speak a little bit about it. Blue Jacket and Little Turtle were pleased to find that some reinforcements were coming in from tribes whose support had previously wavered. The day after the skirmish with Hardin, a group of Ottawas arrived with about the same time as some Sacs and Foxes from the Mississippi arrived. They were short of powder and ball and had to join their fellows in making bows and arrows, but the swelling manpower gave the war chiefs more opportunities. So far they had been bush fighting and planning night attacks on Harmar's garden cattle herd, But now the war chiefs were able to consider a more general engagement. In the meantime, Harmar had made Chillicothe his base of operations, and from there he dispatched parties to destroy the local villages. Wow. So he took the Shawnee capital and kept it for himself, and then used their capital to destroy the rest of them. Never trust a Harmar. Never ever trust these damn Harmars. In all, he claimed to have consumed or burned 20,000 bushels of corn, destroyed 300 houses in 5 towns, probably Kekianga, Miamitown, Chillicothe, and Delaware Village. The Delaware Village, and perhaps Snakestown. What the fuck? 20,000 bushels of corn? 300 houses? So he's like a fucking Putin. Harmar's like a fucking Putin, just going into somebody else's area and just ravishing. The Indians did not seriously impede these activities, but they lost 2 or 3 warriors in periodic skirmishing. On the morning of October 21st, believing his job to be done, Harmar withdrew from the ruins of Chillicothe and headed back for Fort Washington, camping that day after a march of 7 or 8 miles. It was there that Hardin proposed return to Miamitown with a detachment of troops. The night of the 21st and 22nd was clear and moonlit, and Hardin believed that a returning strike force might catch the Indians off guard, perhaps salvaging what they could from what remained of Miamitown. Harmar relented, and 60 regulars, 40 horsemen, and 300 dismounted militia left camp at about 2 o'clock on the morning of October 22nd. The head of the regulars, Major John Paul Graves Willies, commanded. Retrospectively, we could see that Harmar was at fault again. He was detaching a part of his force in the face of an opposition that had almost certainly increased, and the bulk of his assault unit was drawn from militia. You're also not supposed to return to the scene of the crime. They're doubling back, but you had lost, so they went ahead and repelled you. They know that you're there, so there's no surprise. And, okay, you left for now, but you might return in a day or two, so they're ready for you. And the bulk of his assault unit was drawn from militia who had already shown themselves to be unreliable. It took Willies till sunrise to meet the Maumee. Again, the delays were blamed on the militia, but despite the late hour, the Americans launched an attack, one that aimed to surround any Indians, and prudent enough to have reoccupied Miamitown. The Big Knives divided. A battalion of militia under Horatio Hall went to the left to cross the St. Mary's River and hold the west bank of the St. Joseph below Kekianga and across from Miamitown. Kekianga, its purpose was to prevent a retreat that way. The other force, regulars under Willies, W-Y-L-L-Y-S, Willies, and militia under James McMullen forded. The Maumee below Miamitown had advanced on the Indian villages from the opposite direction, but the operation misfired badly. Hall's contingent crossed the St. Mary's, but instead of moving quietly to their position, they began firing on some Indians who had appeared further up the west bank of the St. Joseph. To make matters worse, Hall's men floundered after them toward Kekianga until enemy fire either forced them to cross the St. Joseph or run back the way they had come. Far from screening off Miamitown on that side, Hall's force was all over the place. The premature firing in this quarter instantly alerted the Indians in Miamitown and sent them racing from the village. For the most part, before the oncoming Willies could attack, then began a confusing and fluid melee. Retreating from the town, some warriors fled into the St. Joseph, while others retreated up the river, occasionally standing and retaliating. Excited, McMullen's militia whooped after the Indians up the east bank of the St. Joseph, and toward their right, a force of cavalry under Major James Fontaine also tried to advance, but it scattered after meeting heavy fire from Indians ahead. Willies and his regular were left behind unsupported. This was exactly the situation the Indians had been waiting for, and they closed in for the kill. A large body of warriors, apparently from Willie's right, fired into the vulnerable regulars and then rushed them with tomahawks and war clubs. Most of the Americans, including Willies himself, was cut down, but a few saved their lives by flight. Some ran into the St. Joseph and others up the river after McMullen's militia. The Big Knives had been very badly beaten. The progress of the militia upriver soon ended, and they fell back as the excited Indians gathered about them. Retreating, they fell in with the pathetic remains of Willie's detachment. Somehow the force regrouped in Miamitown and stood the Indians off. Blue Jacket and his warriors held back, waiting for another opening, but the Americans had had enough. They withdrew across the Maumee and hastened back to Harmar's camp. The Indians knew they had won a victory. More than 100 of Harmar's men were killed and missing, many of them regulars who had formed the most dependable part of the general's force. Harmar knew he had been thrashed too, and Hardin, who had twice urged his superior to actions that ended in disaster, entreated Harmar to allow him to return. Harmar declared that he would not divide his army anymore, nor would he risk his entire force in a further adventure. Instead, it fell back to Fort Washington. Apologists might argue that his army had discharged its duty. Let's check out Little Turtle. So, Blue Jacket, Van Swearingen, legend, Little Turtle, Arthur St. Clair. So, November 3rd, 1791, a confederation of Indian tribes. What the hell is that? Led by Blue Jacket and Miami Chief Little Turtle defeated an American expedition led by Arthur St. Clair, governor of the Northwest Territory. The Battle of the Wabash, or St. Clair's defeat, was the crowning achievement of Blue Jacket's military career and the most severe defeat ever inflicted on the, he was also there in the 1790 Harmar. So he defeated Harmar, Blue Jacket did, and then he's going to go ahead and defeat goddamn St. Clair. So let's see the Harmar campaign, 1790, right? This is George Washington. This is America in the very beginning. America says, let's go to the Northwest Territory. Let's take Ohio and Indiana, the land of the Indians, and Illinois for ourselves. Let's just take their land for ourselves. And sent an army. Henry Knox, Department of War. So the old town destroyer, Kanatok Karras, he, killed a whole bunch of fucking Iroquois too in New York. So traditional accounts of the battle tend to give most of the credit for the victory to Little Turtle. Okay. John Sugden argues that Little Turtle's prominence is primarily because of Little Turtle's self-promotion in later years. Interesting. Blue Jacket's triumph was short-lived. The Americans were alarmed by St. Clair's disaster, raised a new professional army commanded by General Anthony Wayne. Old Mad Anthony Wayne. On August 20th, 1794, Blue Jacket's Confederate Army clashed with Mad Anthony at the Battle of Fallen Timbers, just south of present-day Toledo. Blue Jacket's army was defeated, and he was compelled to sign the Treaty of Greenville on August the 3rd, 1795, ceding much of present-day Ohio to the United States. In 1805, Blue Jacket's going to keep on signing these treaties, just relinquishing even more of the Ohio Treaty of Fort Industry. Let's take a look at Wakatamika, the name of two 18th century Shawnee villages. 2 villages? Oh, I'm just going to the Wakatamika. Which one? The east? Okay. The first Wakatamika was located among the Muskingum River near present-day Dresden, Ohio. Was close to a number of Lenape towns. It was established around 1756 by Shawnees from the Upper Shawnee Town, which was located along the Ohio River. After the outbreak of the French and Indian War, 1754, the Shawnees were distancing themselves from raids by the colony of Virginia. For the same reason, 1758, the Shawnee residents of Lower Shawnee Town, also on the Ohio River, moved 50 miles upriver and established new towns on the Pickaway Plains near modern Circleville, Ohio. In August 1774, during Dunmore's War, Wakatamika and 4 other Shawnee villages on the Muskingum were destroyed by Virginia colonial militia in an expedition led by Angus MacDonald. After the first Wakatamika in Dunmore's War, was at 1774, the residents of Wakatamika resettled further west, established in a brand new Wakatamika in 1778. on the Mad River, 2 miles south of present-day Zanesfield, Ohio. This town, along other nearby Shawnee towns, were destroyed in 1786 during an expedition led by Benjamin Logan at the onset of the Northwest Indian War. Motherfucker. Motherfucker! All right. Apologists might argue that his army had discharged its duty after all it destroyed the Indian towns, but it had suffered total losses of 183 killed and missing, and it tasted defeat. The ill fortune of the affair breaks through all the coloring, remarked William McKay of Pennsylvania. Harmar himself was equally frank. Our loss is heavy, he told St. Clair. Heavy indeed. All their great Can, Hawa, Point Pleasant, their Blue Licks, Bouquet's Battle of 1763, etc., 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 was a damned farce in comparison of this action. Yes, sirree, Bob. Where you at, Blue Licks? Blue Jacket was unable to mount an effective pursuit of Harmar's army. The Indian losses had been light. Only 10 or 11 men were killed in the two principal engagements, according to Matthew Elliott. And there were signs that the American force were close to panic. Blue Jacket later reported that Harmar had destroyed some of his baggage and thrown valuable powder into the river. Blue Jacket and Little Turtle wanted to maul the retreating army. They hoped to harry it, breaking off fragments small enough to attack, and when the main body had been weakened enough to attempt a major assault against it, several hundred warriors assembled for that purpose on the evening of October 22, many of them Ojibways and Wyandots who arrived after Willie's defeat. Unfortunately, the Ottawas refused to fight, and during the following night there was an eclipse of the moon. In the morning, Blue Jacket was still expecting further action and sent a runner pounding to the Glades, hoping to inspire Indians there with news of the victory and the claim that so far only 5 Indians had been slain, but the Ottawas were insisting that the lunar eclipse vindicated their forebodings. Their warriors decamped without consulting their allies and went home. Other Indians followed, with their strength draining from them. Little Turtle and Blue Jacket had no alternative but to call off the attack. It was a pity because the American force was badly exposed. The column so straggling that Blue Jacket was disappointed it did not abandon its artillery. Nevertheless, even though the victory had not been as complete as the Shawnee war chief wanted, he must have been exhilarated by it. Never in his lifetime had the Shawnees participated in so signal a defeat of the Big Knives. Much of what has been written about Harmar's defeat has been over-imaginative. Attempts have been made to credit the victories over Hardin and Willie's to individual tactical masterminds rather than to the corporate valor of the Indians as a whole. There are those who seek battlefield Napoleons behind every victory. The strongest evidence for controlled movements on the field occurred in Willie's defeat, when the Indians appeared to have held forces in reserve until the militia dispersed and then delivered their counterattack. Blue Jacket, Little Turtle, Alexander McKee. I'm going to go ahead and just take a break right there. Let's talk a little bit more about goddamn Wikipedia. So St. Clair's defeat, they're saying Harmar wasn't, there was only 2 engagements with Harmar. Who was all at Harmar, okay? The Harmar campaign, you had Harmar and Hardin. John Hardin, Josiah Harmar versus not just Blue Jacket and Little Turtle, but also Legreese. So Miami, Shawnee, and Miami. So 2 Miamis in the Shawnee. Blue Jacket, Little Turtle, Legreese. And the strength was basically the Warriors had 1,050 and the regulars were 320 and the militia was 1,100. Harmar and Hardin had more by 200. They had 1,420. 1,400 men and 20 versus, 1,050. And Harmar is going to have 262 killed versus 150 killed or wounded, which why say or wounded? There's the killed, and then there's a wounded. There's not or. You could say there's a ton of casualties if you're just trying to say, inflate the numbers. But ultimately, how many were killed? And since they're saying killed or wounded, might be half that, 70 or something? Maybe even less. So that's, the Northwestern Confederacy. That's America. St. Clair's defeat. November 4th, 1791, a day which will live in infamy. 21 Native Americans were killed and 632 of Americans, George Washington's Americans were killed or captured. What the fuck? I guess captured. That's different because it's like, where'd they go? But maybe 632. Did 632? Is that what? That's near present-day Fort Recovery. It was a Western Confederacy victory. Who was all, again, Little Turtle, Blue Jacket. This time, I don't see the Legrease guy, but I see the Buckcon Gahilas. Buckcon Gahilas. They killed over 600. He was a renowned Lenape chief. So, the Lenape and the Shawnee they consider the Lenape the grandfather. The Grasshopper War was between the Lenape and the Shawnee. And they looked at the Lenape as their grandfather tribe. So the Lenape would probably, since through oral history, they would probably know at one time they were all the Lenape, and then they split because of a grasshopper, and now there's the Shawnee. So that's a little bit about St. Clair and Little Turtle. He was a Sagamore chief of the Miami people. One of the most famous Native American military leaders, probably the most capable Native American leader in the Northwest Territory. He signed some treaties, led to the War of 1812, so ultimately, but the Northwest Indian Wars are also known as Little Turtle's Wars. So he won 2 major victories with, Harmar and St. Clair, but my guess is he's going to eventually see St. Clair. That was what? Little Turtles War 1794. It's kind of crazy because it took 1,000 warriors, but it's not in order. 1790, 1791, and then 1794. So at any fucking point in time, the George Washington, the Americans just thought that they could go into Ohio and just kill the Native Americans. It's been 3 years. Shouldn't we go back into Ohio and just start killing some Native Americans? 1790 was Harmar, right? And then St. Clair was 1791. Yep, October 7th to the 22nd, 1790 is Harmar. November 4th, 1790. Also, why at the cold, right? October, November. Well, it's cold as shit. Let's go. Why not in the summertime? Let's war with our short, Let's have tank tops and shorts and sandals. Go to war in the goddamn winter. It's cold. It sucks being cold. So, the Battle of Fallen Timbers. Okay, so that's, I guess, the fall. So that's the story of fucking Little Turtle. And then he won a big battle. He won a smaller battle, and then a big battle, and then a bigger battle, and then he won a big. And then 3 years later, he lost a big battle, and then there was no more. Then he was just, was here, was there. He died 1812, July 14th, 1812, from gout and rheumatism. And he was honored with a military-style funeral with full military honors at Fort Wayne. Little Turtle was buried in his ancestral burial. Let's take a look at this damn Mad Anthony Wayne. Were we still at war with them? That was 3 years ago. They haven't done anything. And they returned to the scene of the crime. They should have been prepared. They should have been ready. But I guess maybe that the Battle of Fallen Timbers, they didn't do what St. Clair did and just warn everybody. Just send runners, hey, we're on our way. If you don't want us to kick your ass, then you better stay out. You better stay away. You better get the hell on out of here. Waka Tamika, Mad Anthony. Good old Mad Anthony. The senior officer of the Army of the Ohio Country Frontier, led the Legion of the U.S. Wayne was born in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Worked as a tanner, surveyor, attending the College of Philadelphia, elected to the Mad Anthony Wayne. Dirty, rotten son of a bitch. That's his legacy? Okay, Wikipedia, that is intense. Wayne died during a return trip to Pennsylvania from a military post in Detroit. It's been speculated but never proven that Wilkinson had him assassinated. What? Wilkinson benefited from his death and was made commander. Wayne was buried at Fort Q Isle, where the modern Wayne blockhouse stands. Damn! Treachery is afoot. Spanish couriers carrying payments for Wilkinson. Yeah, the Spanish conspiracy. James Wilkinson he should be like just as fucking famous as Benedict Arnold. James Wilkinson like fucked the fuck over America, and he was like up in the echelons of government, and apparently he was on the payroll. The goddamn Spanish Empire paid spy for Spain. Before his research was public, he was savagely condemned by American historians and politicians. According to Teddy Roosevelt, in all of our history, there's no more despicable character. However, he's also been defeated, especially in breaking up the Burr conspiracy. Okay. So, did James Wilkinson kill Mad Anthony Wayne? Arthur St. Clair's got a nice, strong face, jawline. But you're going to need more than a nice, strong jawline in order to win a war. Right? I think. I don't know. I don't know how war works. Hardin's defeat. Wait a second. Campaigns, Hardin's defeat, Battle of Kikianga, and then the aftermath. So there was 2 main engagements. Hardin's defeat and the Battle of Kikianga. Do we want to? No, let's just